Here we go. Welcome back to Case Closed, Anime Review, episode 228. We're here reviewing episode 1116, Chihaya and Jungo's Matchmaking Party, Part 2. This adapts from the rest of chapter 1086 and goes straight into basic cover the entirety of 1087. Before I talk about the episode itself, there will be a review next weekend of this one, but after that, there will not be a review until April 13th. So basically not for not for about a month. Yes, because there's no new episode after the next week's episode. Next thing to air won't be until March 30th. Which is 2 weeks after, about 3 weeks of this week. But we're not doing any review, unless, of course, somehow they've managed to release a new episode. There won't be a new one, sadly. So, we started off with basically in this episode where the three suspects who debuted last episode, the guy who's CEO of a tech company, the rich guy who plays video games at home, and the book critic, Itaru, Ishida, and Genji. Yeah, so pretty much basically after interrogating everybody, and they mentioned about romantic atmosphere for the employee guy. But she apparently didn't like his face much at all, because he's chubby. So, and of course also there's this moment in the episode where Jungo slips and is about to hit a piece of glass they mentioned a bit earlier that fell on the floor when there was a power outage. He's about to hit it, then Takagi steps on the glass, smashing it, and he causes his foot to sting. And of course he able to move his head just in time in a over the top dramatic fashion. And if you're curious, this had manga too? Oh yes it did! And the anime basically kept the over the topness because well, probably because he's in spec. Here's the thing. That probably is something that you can't exactly do instinctively per se, but yeah, if he hadn't moved at the last possible second and Takagi is tapping on a thing, well, he'll still hurt his head, but at least his head won't be punctured by a piece of glass. And of course, Chia seeing Takagi do this, points to the conclusion he's like Jinpei. A lot like Jinpei. We'll get back to that. So, after sophisticated Conan overhearing all the conversation, he figures out who the culprit is. It's the first guy who went and see the woman, who turns out she is a marriage frauduler. Yeah, basically takes money from rich guys. And the reason why he went after her, because basically she went after his brother. Which basically she took all of his money, he was penniless, so he's going to commit suicide. And he's like, his baby was about to get away with it, but basically that, well, they have found the glove, because he wore a glove, to fire a silencer gun in this room to prove it's real, and he hid it in a toilet stall. And the fact that this whole thing about him being in the toilet stall the whole time right after this meeting, yeah, it wasn't more than a lie, because they poke holes in it due to the fact there was a power outage and also a glass breaking. Because they point out the reason why he didn't know the power outage was because he hid under the table the whole time. Yep. So then of course he's like, well, I'm not gonna go to jail. So then they proceed to bring the meal, which in the manga he managed to take the top off while removing the knife. In the anime, top stays on, and he's like about to commit suicide with something knife through his head, and then Takagi steps in, grabs the thing by the blade, and causes his hands to bleed. Chihaya basically remembering what he did to. Well, of course, they mentions later that Chihaya had seen him do this with their best friend Shinobu, which the reason why she was about to commit suicide due to the fact her boyfriend broke up with her. And she asked him, like, why'd you do that? To prove the fact the blood was real. And then the next day he lost a boxing match because of the injury. So, and then of course, John goes, kid, duck. And then he proceeds to do what, here's the thing. In the manga, they called this that clothesline. In the anime, it's the Western Lariat. Now, those of you who probably do not know wrestling moves, who used that move most famously? Who used the Western Lariat? Stand-a Lariat Hansen, who I found out today, apparently his other nickname in Japan was the Unsinkable Battleship. Yes, a well-known American wrestler who wrestled frequently in Japan in the 80s and 90s. Also, former four-time All Japan Pro Wrestling Triple Crown champion. And you're probably thinking, how would Takagi know about the Western Lariat? Simple. It's established the fact he and Sato are big wrestling fans. Yes, they love wrestling. And he was identified right away. And the fact that this is not the first time he did this. He also identified a move that Rand used on a murder suspect, which was a Shining Wizard. A move invented by the Great Muda. And the guy was like, that's right. It was a Shining Wizard. I thought it was so awesome the fact he identified as the Western Lariat. Because I think calling it that clothesline was so lame. Like, what clothesline? There are many different clotheslines. It was Western Lariat, which I was so awesome the fact they did that. My guess is the reason why they probably call it the Western Lariat. And it probably nothing to do with Kim Justice releasing a video about Stan Hansen a few days ago. Probably because basically probably the writer of the episode is a big wrestling fan. So why not, like, the way he did it, like, yeah, it's something probably Stan Lariat Hansen did. How would I know about this particular lariat? Well, because I've actually heard people talk about it, and the fact I've seen some footage of it. And fun fact, one of the wrestlers, Eddie Kingston mentioned this on a interview he did, a podcast he was on, What Happened When, with Tony Schiavone and Cameron Thompson, where he identified Jun Akiyama's move, the lariat. He basically was blessed the move by Stan Hansen. Somebody who Tony Schiavone does know pretty well because he worked with WCW briefly. Yep. And then afterwards, then of course, Chihaya basically points out how much of an idiot he is, and then of course, Santos puts her hand through, and of course, if you love him, don't lose him. It's like, and of course, they change his dialogue. In the manga, it says, you got a girl. In the anime, which I think is much better dialogue, where they say, you got a girlfriend. If you love him, don't lose him. And then, of course, he explains something with Shinobu. Of course, she had asked Django to drive her motorcycle to take her home because she got drunk, and Shinobu was taking the train home. And when she's holding him while he's riding the motorcycle and explaining everything, it turns out that he actually is bleeding. And you're thinking, how the heck this happened? Well, he he basically stopped a home invasion. And he got stabbed, and he has 5 stitches. So he's like, I can use taking home, and of course he probably gonna go to the hospital probably after this. But yeah, really fun episode. I love the whole thing with Chihaya getting some fun development. Now, if you're curious, is she gonna return? Because this is her second ever story she appeared in. technically, in a way, in terms of anime, this is probably the most recent thing they've done with her. Because actually, she does appear recently in a recent arc from the manga. Yeah, the most recent arc that just wrapped up. Yes, that just wrapped up fairly recently. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, she had just returned like not long before this. Mm-hmm. She did. It was the Kaido. It was the foil kidnapping transition case. That was the most recent appearance she made in the manga. Which, by the way, this arc they adapted for this very episode. That was only that. Yeah, this arc originally was released in the manga just 2 years ago, and now they adapted for the anime. 2 years later. So, if you're curious, how many more arcs are left to be adapted as of right now? Of the ones that have been released so far? Well, the answer is 12. Yep, 12. Yeah, but they released new chapters since the recent chapter wrapped up. Is the series over? No, it isn't. It's just they haven't released a new chapter yet. It just says to be continued. Possibly, maybe the thing is on break. I mean, the last chapter came out roughly like a little over a month ago, so who knows when they're gonna resume the chapter in the manga. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's gonna be pretty much it for particular review. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and do not hit the dislike button. Yeah, it's gonna be very late, so I'm not gonna do videos tonight. So tomorrow, Super Sentai. I don't know if we're gonna catch the comic card tomorrow. There'll be 2 Super Sentai and 3 anime, which will be Blue Exorcist, Banished Party, and Tales of Wedding Rings. Yep. But this is the next video. Bye.